David, who is a good friend of mine from Miami. Hello, David. We have Coach
Buddy.
Kumar, who is a spiritual healer, who has been teaching us really good things that we should put into our disciplines to give us better spiritual healing powers. Because I think we need that in this day and time to be able to ward off all of these bad things that are happening around us because there's just too many things, right? Way too many negatives. But David, for those of you who don't know, David is two-time survivor of a very, very rare cancer. The first time given a death sentence, but he's got that spirit that says, no, I'm not ready to die yet. And, Ankit shared with us as well that his brother died a year ago from cancer. And I think we're all wondering, as well as like with what Coach Kumar has been teaching us, because these are good disciplines to have. Do you truly, David, do you believe, and I think Ann could ask this question and things were spotty that day and everything, that the spiritual part was the big reason why you survived?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
My right before I went through cancer, I had attended a church in Fort Lauderdale, and it was interesting because I went to take somebody. Now, I've always been a Christian my whole life, so that wasn't the point. But I went to take a friend of mine that needed to go to church, and I felt like I needed to take him there. And at that point, I ended up staying in that church. A few months later, I felt the tumor. I went through my first battle with cancer. I stayed in that church for many, many years. And when it came time to do a docu-piece on my story, that church was the production team decided to do this docu-piece, which is now on YouTube and all that. And basically, the pastor, when he went on the air, it used to be every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. He mentioned how what he loved about my testimony or my story was that God allowed a physically man to become weak, to become spiritually strong. And I really, truly believe that if it wasn't for my relationship with God, I wouldn't have been able to battle the second time, which was the battle for my life, which was the chemotherapy and the surgery. And Kimberly, this is a big day. Today, July 11th, I am actually celebrating 13 years cancer-free on your show, and I'll be doing.
Yay! I want something to pop and balloons go up and yeah. Let's. This is like a second birthday for you, right?
I celebrate this day more than next week. Next week is actually my birthday.
Can you be louder, David? Can you be a bit louder? We can't hear you clearly.
Can you hear me? No?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. So, on July 18th is my birthday. So it's next week is my birthday. But today is my anniversary of being cancer-free. So I celebrate this day more than anything. It's almost like, it's just a new birthday because it's really where, and it's interesting because people say, well, your surgery was February 1st of 2007. I said, yeah, that was my surgery. But they didn't do the PET scan. They didn't do any of that. So I actually said to the doctor, I need a break. And that break was for 4 or 5 months until July 11th, when I finally did my PET scan. And I went against my doctor's order. I said, listen, I need a break from all this. I took a break after my surgery. I got back on stage, hosted a show in June. And in July, 7 days before my birthday, I decided to go do my PET scan. And that's when I have him on video as part of my documentary that I'm working on, that he said, David, we couldn't find any cancer. So that's to me is my new rebirth, kind of,
I celebrate the day I survived as well. I celebrate the day. I celebrate the day I woke up. And because to me, it was a whole new way of life. Like, I see things different anyway. You probably do too, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. I mean, because sometimes when I hear your story, about just the new way that you were able to rise out of the ashes, a different believer in God. Not that you didn't believe in God, but just a different power that you believe in God. And there's a difference there. This is what I tell people. When you see the light, there's a difference in saying, oh, you believe the light exists versus seeing the light. And
Right.
I think that's what Coach Amanda May has taught me to remember. Because sometimes during all of this negativity, even the most positive person can get knocked down, right?
Absolutely.
But it's really good to see you, David. I'm so glad we get to celebrate today together. What else are
No,
you going to do today? What else do you do on your celebration day?
it's a blessing. Well, I wanted to touch base on what you guys have been talking about. God bless you. I've been listening to you guys for the last 20 minutes or so. It's I love listening to people talk about, realistically, the spiritual being is, again, it's inside of us. We're a vessel. So whatever choice we make with our physique, with our body, with our physical being, we are literally a vessel to a spirit that has a purpose. And if we don't use that, if we don't believe in that, we lose the whole concept of meaning. We lose the whole concept of actually existing a real life and leaving a legacy for other people to say, this is what this person do. Remember, we are here for, our legacy is the people that we impact. So even after we pass on our physical being, there's all these people that we impacted that can continue to build and build and build and build things that they've never really would have built before. And it's funny, you were talking about what makes us upset or what frustrates us. And I used to, when I was working in the health club industry as a consultant, any little thing can get to the point where I will get overwhelmed because it wasn't going my way. Now, none of the stuff that I do overwhelms me. The only thing that overwhelms me is the frustration when a client or a friend of mine, I know they're supposed to do better and they're not living their purpose. So my frustration now is not about me, is about other people living their purpose. So it's really interesting. I was listening to you guys, but Kimberly, back to you about the question. Today at 6 o'clock, I'm doing a celebration of life, and I'm going to be streaming it basically over 100,000 people on social media, on YouTube, and all that stuff. And I decided to do this tribute, and people were like, "Why are you doing a tribute? I don't get it." I said, one of the things that I went through when I went through chemo and surgery was all these people came to my life to share with me a message of how my life had impacted them. And I had no clue. I was just being me. I was just saying, I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, I'm a friend. And I was doing motivational speaking, but to a different degree.
Right.
And people came to me to the hospital. My mom even said, uh, I was so amazed of how many people came to visit you and kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, even when you weren't even coherent, when you were sleeping or you were under the chemo or under sleep or whatever. People still came and they still just wanted to see you, lay their hands on you or pray for you and share messages with you. Even when I was sleeping, people would talk to me, and I felt like I went to my funeral. And I know probably everyone that's had a spiritual awakening has felt something like that. So I think in this room, I think we're all in one accord. And I felt like I went to my funeral, and one thing that I remember, that that's what gave me the passion and the push to keep my promise 13 years later to continue to share the story. And then I felt like I needed uh, a renewed energy, right? So I decided to do this celebration of life, and it's for everybody. It's free, and I'm streaming it everywhere. And all of a sudden, I got hundreds of videos of people, and I watched some of them, but I couldn't. I was editing. It's publishing now, so it'll be ready by 6 o'clock tonight. And
Awesome.
the stories of these women and men, mostly women. I've coached women for 13 years. Don't ask me why, but I did a whole I did a whole women's conference, but I do have men too. Don't worry. And it was just amazing how they see me, or how my story, not even me, but the story has impacted them in a way that they too want to live their life. They want to find their purpose. And the biggest thing for me is when people say to me, I didn't give up on my life because David didn't give up.
That's right.
And that always hits me really deep,
That,
because when I hear people taking their own life, and there's people that call me and say, David, I listened to your story and I see you fighting when everybody says you're done. People are saying you got 3 days to live. And why are you fighting? What are you fighting for? And I said I was fighting to live my dreams. Like you guys were talking about dreams. I believe every single dream is a way that God reveals to us what we're actually meant to do in our lives.
exactly.
And if we don't pay attention to it, we basically exist and we don't ever get a chance to really truly live the life that we're meant to live. So for me, that really always affects me, especially right now when I get emotional because I hear people telling me they don't want to live.
I just want to hug you, David. I just want to hug you. Oh my God, you're making. Yeah, I'm just gonna, because normally I could just reach over and hug you when we have these talks, right?
Yes,
Like when
we
we
have
were at
these
the
moments.
Frost Museum, right? And
Yes.
I could reach over and hug you, or you could hug me and go, "That's okay. We got through it. We're here." But we're more compassionate to other people. When I don't say we're more compassionate. We just become very compassionate because of the understanding of what you go through to fight that last breath and still survive. And not everybody's given that blessing. Okay. And I heard you say it. A gentleman that I'm trying to get on our show who played for the NFL football, and he had a heart attack on the field and died on the field, but survived when he got to the hospital. He says these same words, by the grace of God. And I told him, I said, Chris, I'm going to make a song called By the Grace of God. I'm sure there's one that exists, but I'm going to call it one where we lived, right? And we're surviving because, by the grace of God. And I truly believe that God brings us together, right? Just like Zach and I talked, that something brings us together. Whatever it is, it's bringing us together during a time when there's so much horrible things going on everywhere else. And the Japanese taught me something. A lot of times when there's something magnificent about to happen, like just stupendous, the evil comes in and they do all of these just things to distract you from this great thing, from staying focused on the right straight things. We have to stay focused. This is why I have just embraced our coach, Anamande May, for giving us the strength to continue the disciplines to stay focused, because that's very important, isn't it, David?
Well, yeah, and think about this, Kimberly. What you said, oh my God, the words that I talk about all the time. Be excited through your challenges. And when I wrote that seminar, it was about exactly that. It's like, look at it, when women give birth, it takes 9 months. 9 months for a life to grow and to develop into the being. Now, the pain that a woman goes through to give birth, my doctor said that I gave birth to 4 tumors, a kidney, and well, anyway.
It's painful. It is. I know.
What was interesting about it is that when a woman gives birth, how much pain do they go through? How much pain, to the point that some women need an epidural. I had an epidural through my 12-hour surgery. So I went to this experience, and then now I can relate to women's birth even more. But the thing about it is, after they give birth, what do they do when they give you the baby? I love you. My mom was telling me I was, bloody or whatever, or, it doesn't matter. They kiss you and they hug you, and there's an unconditional love that happens after the pain.
It's love at first sight. This is what I tell people from the day you're born, you're blessed with love at first sight. Yes, Ankit.
So
David,
go ahead.
So I just wanted to know, one thing, that while you were having your survivor journey, do you think that there were any racism, or you think that the black person can't treat me, or the white can't treat me, or you are a Muslim or a Christian or things like that? Or it's all about getting the work done and working like a team?
Say that again. Say that last
So
time.
I think because there's some reverb, I think what he's asking is through your journey, were you ever treated prejudice because of your race, color, religion, creed? You know, like we're dealing with right now with black and whites and everything. Were you treated with any prejudice, or was it a unified is
What
medicine a unified goal to heal people without prejudice?
I
That's
tell you, I felt. I don't want to use this terms. I'm not a politician, but I want you guys to understand where the term comes from. I felt like I was the president of the United
David,
States.
can you put your mic a little closer because I can't hear you clearly.
yeah. Just put
Mic
your
little closer. Yeah, yeah,
Can you hear me now? Is that
yeah,
better?
better, way
yeah,
better.
yeah.
Okay.
No, no, no.
So what was interesting about it, I felt like I was the president of the United States, and I'm not a politician. I'm just saying the way that God brought this one doctor that believed, only one made a phone call when I was given a death sentence, and he believed that he could try something. And when I woke up after my surgery, I had 7 doctors in white robes watching me, waiting for me to wake up after a 12-hour surgery, after 14 hours in the emergency room, in the operating room. And even the guys that had to keep their eye on my oxygen level, I thanked them profusely because I could have been a vegetable.
Yeah.
And they literally watched for hours that little gauge to make sure my oxygen level in my brain didn't go lower. And I literally felt like this team was brought literally for me to live. I mean, I tell you, there is no doubt in my mind. I've never, you can look at all my interviews. I always say, God had a purpose for my life. He put the right people in my life to get me through it. But I still have to make a choice. We still have to get up. We still have things to do. Nothing happens without us choosing. I have to choose to eat. I have to choose to get up. I have to choose to work out. I have to choose to believe. The first thing, to have hope and believe. So nothing happened. Everything's been a divine appointment. Even Kimberly, how we met, that story's crazy. I just showed up for one of my friends, that my partner in crime, Gary, who does my production team, and he shows up. He said, "Come with me." I show up, and then Kimberly's like, "Hey, you're gonna do interviews today." I'm like, "What?" and I took over because
I know.
she
I was
believed in me.
handed. Yeah, I couldn't do both interviews. I had lined up interviews over here and lined up, and I said, "Okay, you're designated. You're the one." Because I've heard about your interviews with a survivor, and I've not really seen them, but I saw your presence. The minute you walked in the door, I'm like, yeah, this guy's got that. He knows what he's doing. So you know, there are times when people are brought together, but you were the first other person besides me to say live on IBM TV, and I think you put a more powerful punch to it than I did, so I appreciate that. But he took over. He interviewed some of the world's most famous NFL and NBA players, and just
He
and
was
we
happy to be live on IBM TV.
No, live is the number one thing.
It
Yeah.
was live. It was our first. We had 2 shows going on at the same time. First time that had ever been done, ever. In fact, I was told by StreamYard they had never done this before, and I was told by my boss. My boss called me and goes, "What on earth are you doing? We've never done this before." And I go, "Trust me."
Well, and that's the thing. Trust. You know, I've been hosting shows since I was 18 years old. I've been on TV. I've been acting. I've been modeling. All that stuff. But what was interesting about it was, the fact that Kimberly just trusted me. And here's the thing: when you give me, you know, everybody here knows about love languages, right? Everybody here knows love languages. So my love language has always been touch and words of affirmation. If you give me a words of affirmation about what I do, you have no, God has done things through me that I can't even explain. And Kimberly gave me that. I took over, but Kimberly, the interviews, you gave me permission and you allowed me to be me. And I literally broke these people down to basically telling me their story.
They're human.
Live.
their
We were
human
only supposed
story.
to be interviewing them about what they were going to do, but the Players Association. But they ended up telling me their story. I wanted the truth. I wanted to pull everything from them because that's what I do on my shows. And Kimberly just said, keep going, keep going. But then the best part was when I interviewed Kimberly at the Mondrian Hotel. And oh my gosh, she opened up at the Frost Theater, and then at the Mondrian, she opened up to me, and it was such a blessing to listen to her story. It was a beautiful thing.
Well, your story's amazing. I think these things inspire people, and I'm like you. Several times, by the grace of God, the right doctor just happened to walk by, and in the moment when I was dying and the ER was writing me off, a doctor was going home that night. He
Mm.
was going home from a full day of work, and he walked through the ER, and he stopped. He didn't have to stop. There were 100 people in the ER, and he saw me bleeding out.
Mm.
And he asked one question. I don't remember anything after that. To be honest with you, I was kind of passing out by that point. So I do know that they put me onto the floor where people never go home. They died there. I was the favorite patient there. Like you said, you felt like the president because
Yeah.
I finally woke up and they're like, she's going to live. So I became like, and I even asked the guy, why am I getting so much attention? And he goes, do you know how many people don't live on this floor? He goes, this is unbelievable. He goes, we love you right now. So I feel by the grace of God because, and that doctor, his nurse called me every week, every day for months and told me nobody ever lives at the stage I was at ever, that I have a purpose in life and I better do it. And I'm like, well, what is it? She goes, that's not for me to that's not for me to find. We saved you. It's up for you to do your purpose in life. And she called me every week to tell me how many people died that week from what happened to me. She would call and share stories. And, you would think that that would be depressing after a while. But after a while, I started feeling I have to have a purpose. So what is it, Anko?
And there is one interesting thing that during the relationship between a doctor and a patient, doctor sees a lot of patients who are alive and who died during the treatment. But patient have some kind of different bond with the doctor as compared to doctor because doctor is seeing a lot of patients.
Yep.
So for them, it's like every patient is equal. But for patient, the world is different because he connects and he's emotionally carried away with a lot of things. But David, does that happen now as well? Are you in touch with those people who helped you during that time?
Yeah, it's funny you talk about your doctor, Kimberly. So my doctor made the phone call. I was in the emergency room. He takes me to Sylvester Cancer, Jackson Memorial at the time, and I meet him that morning. I met him around 1 o'clock in the morning, and he came in with a straight face, like very doctorish, and I said to him, I was smiling and making jokes. Now I was on morphine, so I was a little high, probably, but
It helps.
but I remember saying to him, I said, and I remember it directly. It was one of those visions that you have that stays in your mind forever. And I said, Dr. Benedetto, right? He goes, yeah, I'm your favorite patient. And I said this is the first time I met him. And I said to him, you're God's instrument. God's going to heal me and you're his instrument. And he looked at me like I was on drugs. I was out. And I wrote it in an envelope just to kind of proclaim it. Sometimes you just have to kind of declare it and decree it.
Yeah.
And I wrote it in an envelope and I said, God was going to heal me. Dr. Benedetto's my instrument. And he said that to me again one time. I said, why would you say that? I said, because you're the only one that called. No one else wanted to touch me with a 10-foot pole. No one wanted me to fly to Indiana, to Boston, to Sloan Kettering. No doctor, no hospital wanted my case. They gave me days to live. And you decided to make a phone call. And I always compare it to being on death row. I've never been to jail, by the way. but I'm just thinking, if you're in death row and all of a sudden they call and say he's innocent, let him go. I felt
That's
like
what I
that
felt
was the
like.
call. I felt like that was the call to say, it was almost like God saying to me, are you going to answer the call? I'm going to give you this opportunity. What are you going to do with your life? And then 3 weeks later, when I woke up at 124 pounds, in the little picture there, I made a promise that day. And I said, God, I'll tell your story if you heal me for the rest of my life. And 13 years later,
You're
I've been
still
telling my
doing it.
story nonstop.
You're still doing it. And I know the feeling with my disease. Now, when I had the incident of dying, that was from all the medications they had been giving me, and my organs shut down. But for years, no doctors would touch me because of my disease. Like they never, some of them never even heard of it. So if I was rushed to the emergency room for whatever problems, and they found out I had syringomyelia, they wouldn't even touch me. They would not even treat me. And it's not a contagious disease. They were scared that they would hurt me.
Yeah.
So
Or that they would fail.
I get it. Or they would fail. So I get it, David. I know when you got that death sentence given to you that nobody wants to help you, but one doctor there's two doctors in the country, and one lived here, and I got the phone call. My personal physician had always loved me like a daughter, and he's the one who made the call to him and said, "Can you help her? Can you save her?" He performed a rare surgery, one of the rare surgeries ever, so rare that the insurance wouldn't pay for it. It had failed 5 other times with patients with my disease, and he designed the tool to do it. And he's a Christian. He prays and sings music while he operates. It was a 8 to 10 hour surgery, kind of like what you're talking about. And he designed that tool, and it arrived that morning before my surgery. But what I liked about him, like you were talking about, is when they wait around for you to wake up. Like, because I wouldn't wake up, and they were getting worried about it. And it would have been 10 to 12 hours after the surgery, and I still refused to wake up. And he was standing over me, almost like he was praying, please, please wake up. And when I woke up, I was so happy to see him that I was crying, because that meant I lived. And he was crying. But during me, I say thank you, but you know how you're on drugs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, my mouth is really dry, and you know what I asked for? Can I have some ice cream?
Chocolate ice cream.
I was about to share the same story. So when my brother was in hospital, so I used to go there early morning. Like I start at 6:30 from my home, so that I can reach early. And then we used to, cook something for him because he doesn't like to eat hospital food.
Yeah.
So something, some small thing or whatever it is, that makes him happy. And also on the other hand, he's depressed because when we are out, when we have to go at home, basically at around evening time. So he has that 12 hours of time where no one is close to him, and he does that chemo and all those things going on, radiation and all those therapies. But the person becomes very depressed and very, upset, and he doesn't know what to do if he's not with a good will. That's what I talk about. I mean, if the person doesn't have a willpower, it's difficult for them to survive. But do you think, David, there should be a lot of motivational lectures or some kind of motivational stories or movies or things like that happen in the hospital, because the atmosphere is very dull. I mean, as an attendant, I can go out and make myself relax and divert my mind. But for a patient who's there in the hospital for like 3 weeks or 3 months, it's difficult for them to get the things done. And then it's not easy to just watch television and then just see what's happening around. And also, television is also nothing but more about news and politics, basically. It's not IBM TV. So,
well, Ankit, I want to say one thing that I feel like I should share with you is the fact that, first of all, my condolences go out to your brother. But I want to say to you that your brother still lives through you. The work that you're doing, and you're supposed to continue his legacy. He's not done yet. So you have to share his story. You have to share his passion for life. And that is what I've always believed. My father passed away 2 years ago. I'm still his legacy. Mm-hmm. I still continue to share him. And so don't remember, that's what gives us a healing power. Is to know that he's still with us. Remember, we're still a spiritual being. My father's still with me. So don't ever, and I always say my father did pass away, but my father's still with me. I always make sure I connect the dots, because I still speak to my father. I can still live for my father. You still can live for your brother, and that will give you even more of a passion for life, because now it's not just about you, it's about your brother, and you can't let him down.
No.
So
No, I completely agree.
whatever he went through, you got to continue to go. You got to continue to push, because it's not. Here's the thing about life: we all have gone through stuff in life that we give up on ourselves sometimes. Sure, but how many times, all you coaches and all you amazing people that I'm looking at, beautiful faces, how many times would you do something for someone else?
Anytime.
Yep, that's true.
And
And we need to do more of that. And David, you brought up a good thing just about the legacy and how that legacy is not just you have kids. You've mentioned that a couple of times, but the legacy is also for those of us that don't have kids. Because I don't have any kids, but I've got 2 nephews. I've got a whole slew of people that I definitely consider to be part of my family, but they're part of like a bigger spiritual family. So even though I may not have any direct kids, I feel that I do have kids that are not necessarily my kids. They're people that I might mentor in one way or another, or encourage in one way or another. I know that one of my favorite people, and he actually recently passed not that long ago, who I know Kimberly knows as well, was Baba Chuck Davis, who was an amazing dancer and an amazing person, but never had any kids of his own. Some people may have even wondered about lifestyle choices and things of that nature, but that's irrelevant. But I'm just saying, but for whatever reason, had no kids of his own. But I can tell you that Baba Chuck Davis probably influenced, I would argue, millions, if not hundreds of thousands. And Kim is shaking her head, so I think that she's probably agreeing with me that being a global figure, that he definitely influenced a whole lot of people around what he did, because he was a dance ambassador around the world. I mean, he traveled to Africa, he traveled to other parts of other. I think he traveled to some other countries other than African countries, and he definitely traveled all over the United States. So he's definitely one of those amazing figures that is a person that made an impact, and still, like you said, continues to make an impact. I mean, he passed away not that long ago, but his impact is still going on. The same I could say with Phil Freelon, who just recently passed away and designed the African American Museum, but was a family friend. But definitely these folks have impacted a lot of society and still continue to impact society. I don't know if you're familiar, and I'm going to be quiet for a minute or anything. I don't know if you're familiar with Trevi McDonald's book, but she wrote a book, and she's a friend of mine that is a professor here. And one of my friends was actually in the book. It's called How We Got Over Testimonies of Faith, Hope, and Courage. And one of my friends is a gentleman by the name of Brett Chambers. And Brett Chambers, in one of our storms, was actually taken underneath water. And he was with a Muslim lady, I believe. But that water and their faith, their separate faith, is what got them through, because they hydroplaned in such a way that they were literally under the water and did not know whether they would survive. So he's actually one of the people that is featured in the book, but it's talking about how faith and hope and courage is what got them through that incident, because they were one of our times, because North Carolina oftentimes will have floods, and it was one of those times that the flood was heavy. At that time, he was a TV producer for one of our TV stations, and he actually went underneath the water, and the water was way over on top of the car. So like I said, there was some question as to whether they would even survive, but he was one of the people featured in Trevi's book. So if you're not familiar with that book, I would strongly urge you to check it out.
I want to introduce David to the IBM TV family and our habits. But we've also got these little signs that we give each other. I don't know if you noticed it, but first off, if somebody pops in, we're always, even if someone's talking, we try to pleasantly say hello. We also have this sign that we're all connected. So whenever you hear something talk and we all feel it, we all connect. You'll see us do this. I don't know if you've seen us do this. Okay, we're all uniform.
But I didn't know what it meant.
And the world is one. Okay, and we love each other. This is the sign of love. The 2 fingers like this, and love. 2 fingers like a triangle, right? We all love each other. And of course, we got namaste. And then we've got other signs. Yeah, live and let live, unless you're in America.
Live and let live.
So,
And this one's this week. This
this
one is this
is
week.
yeah, and
And
this
this one is the
manifest your destiny with prayer, right? So this is all about
Make the triangle.
this is a pyramid of going up, right? The blessings going up. But this is how we meditate, and this is the homework that our coach is giving us for a week to manifest, breathe in deep and manifest our destiny. And one of the good things we learned today, and I learned as well yesterday from some scientists, is that we should be breathing in deep to fill our lungs with the COVID going around. So one of the things I learned, and so our doctor Sagu, encourages it because it helps build the cavities. But also when you stretch your lungs out, the scientists are finding out the COVID can't stick to it. So when it's at full capacity, like a balloon, instead of sticking to it, this is what they're learning. So breathe in deep, meditating, focus. But what all the things you shared are just things that you and I have connected on. Many times we've stayed connected. Many times I'll meet somebody and I don't ever get to see them again. And we didn't do that. We even through all of this COVID mess. But I don't know if you know the story. After the Frost Museum, I got locked in there. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You heard that
That was
story?
bad.
So it was like midnight
Yeah.
at the museum. Nobody could get in, and the
Nope.
guards were gone, and I couldn't
They
get
locked
out.
her in.
Like the gates had closed down, they were letting the animals out. And I was there, and there was no. I kept hitting the emergency button. I guess it was broke. The elevators wouldn't work, and I'm sitting there for probably an hour and a half, and I'm watching, the animals in the big aquarium swim, and then I see these divers come in to clean the tank. And I'm like, okay, thank you, God. But God was making me sit and think about things, right? So I got videotapes of me going, I'm not afraid. And I was taking pictures of the museum, and Scarlett's outside, trying to get in. Oh my God, I can't get you, and my signal wasn't working. But I got videotapes of me going, I'm not afraid. I know things are going to work. I'm calm. It was beautiful. Oh my God. If you want to impress a date, rent that museum at night. Go sit
Nice.
on the third or fourth floor, overlook the aquarium, and watch
Kimberly's
the
love
guys
tips.
clean it.
But
What?
Kimberly, I'm busting with questions. But first, I want to
Okay.
say hello to my favorite Philly fan, Lynn Shepard. And but I also want to ask Coach Kumar, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was listening to David, and then Kim also shared this that we all come here on this planet Earth with a purpose. And in all the ups and downs of our lives, we forget or we just do not want to find what our purpose is. So this is a book I went for a break to find out. This is a book from which my spiritual journey started, and this is called Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Wiz. When I started reading this book, it talks about reincarnations and how do souls transfer from one body to another, and what is the purpose. So how I decoded it and what I share with people, that take yourself or your soul as you are a student. Your parents send you to a hostel to study a particular semester or a particular course. So when you finish that course with distinction and good marks, what happens? You come back home with to your parents. But if you fail, or if you do not get the lesson, not fail, but if you do not get the lesson properly, you are again sent to the hostel, and you have to spend your time there and studying the same chapter again and again. So that's what David was also sharing, is that when we stop asking why this is happening to me or my loved ones, and we start asking what is this teaching me, what is the message from this thing, what is happening to me, then we find our purpose. And when we start living it, we come together, and the universe conspires. This is what we say here, and there's a phrase in Hindi or a movie dialogue which says, किसी चीज को इतनी शिद्दत से चाहो कि पूरी कायनात उसे तुम्हें मिलाने की साजिश करती है. So that means that if you love something with all your heart and soul, even the universe conspire to give that to you. So when you know your purpose, so you come together and meet like-minded people, as we all are sitting here and discussing on same topic, and we all have something in common to share from our experiences. That yes, we all come here with a purpose, and when we stop asking why this is happening to me, and we shift our question to what this is teaching me, then all the shift happens in our lives.
No, that's beautiful.
Well, that's very beautiful. Jim, before you get to your point and everything, I just had a quick comment to something that you said earlier. I think it might have been before you ducked out. And that's that I've noticed a lot of times you were talking about the need for art. You were talking to David about the need for art and the need for different things around the hospital. And I agree that that's a great thing and a great way that we use the get the hospital patients involved and everything. But have you ever noticed that so often the stuff is outside in the public realm, and I don't know that the patients get enough of the use of it, because that's where my concern is that I have some friends that have put up art in one of our local hospitals, a world-renowned hospital here in Durham. I'll just call it that, and that ought to tell you what I'm talking about. But they put up art there, and then they've had people that have performed and done other things. But my concern is that the people that should be getting the relaxation and the thing from the art are the patients, and the artists aren't necessarily coming to them. So I was just wondering, did you have any experience with any art or anything while you were in your hospital? Because oftentimes when I see these places, they're in the public part of the domain in the hospital. They're not in some place that the actual hospital people can see them unless they're toward the end of their stay.
Have
Is
you
that to
ever
me?
seen Have you ever seen Calendar Girl? Yeah, I think it was directed to you. Have you ever seen Calendar Girl? Because when David mentioned that, I was thinking Calendar Girl, right? The girls, the movie where they went and collected money to put a beautiful waiting room for the patients. But David, you couldn't be more than right. That they need the people need art for healing. One of the things that was brought into my room was a violinist, a student violinist came, and he was traveling from room to room to room, and the music truly awakened me. Even though I was unconscious, I could hear. So I agree with you, David. I think we need to beautify. But before things get kind of crazy around here, because we got a lot going on, David, I want to offer to you an opportunity to distribute your celebration on IBM TV tonight when you're doing it. Well, if you send us a link,
Well, yeah, I still have the YouTube. I think I still have YouTube. I think I can still sign through YouTube, right? Through
yeah, you
IBM.
can just assign us the link,
Sure.
and
Yeah,
Ankit will share it.
I'd
Yep.
love to do that. So, but I wanted to share one thing with Mark. Mark, I wanted to say one thing real quick. It was about the art. A lot of the hospitals, my foundation is for children with cancer. A lot of the hospitals, it's the same thing with every room has to be clean and empty. And the reason why they do that way is because they don't want to have, it's the same thing with the spiritual talk. It's the same thing with bringing someone that can pray for you or something. They don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to have to pray. It's all about the doctor. And just like my doctor, if I talk to my doctor about faith, he wouldn't say really anything. But what's really cool is now that I survived, I have my doctor on video talking about how my faith gave him faith to keep going. So that was a turnaround. But the reason why hospitals, at least Sylvester, and they don't do that is because each room has to be clean. If somebody wants something in, they have to ask for it. And I think they do it more to protect themselves. Really, I know how it sounds, but they do. When I do an event for the kids, I have to go to a room, and the kids have to come to that room because if I come to them, I have to get all this kind of red tape permission to go through it.
It is crazy that we have to go through so much red tape just to give a goodwill effort. I think when we do shows like this, which is, keep it to the quality that we've been keeping it, that people will come, right? And we will inspire the people who need us. And that is something I have noticed because somebody keeps asking me, well, how many viewers do you have? And I actually, to be honest with you, we quit counting. It hit 100,000, and I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to work. We focus on the content. But let me tell you, the reason why I say this is not just our quality, but the quality of viewers that come to us. Because I'll get phone calls from venture capitalists or from some of the wealthiest people in the world, and they'll go, I was watching your show. I like it. What can we,
Kim,
what can we do to help? And that's what this is about: is how can we help, and how can we help you? Go ahead, Ankit. Is what I was going to ask is how we can
so
help
as far as
you.
the viewers is concerned, someone asked me that how many viewers we have. So the answer is that if you can count your hairs, I can count my viewers.
If you can count my hairs, I can count. A good one for a bald guy.
That's it.
But here's the other thing. It's to me the quality of right content, and that's what somebody called me about. And he said, he goes, you have the right content, and it's just going to keep growing. And that's what we want. We want to spread the good, the healthy. We're not here to bleed and lead. We're here to share and inspire life and living. And if we have to, peaceful crossovers, right? Like Coach was telling us, we don't really leave, right? I think we just pass on, like you were saying. Your dad's legacy passes on to you, and his brother, his life passed on to him. My father and mother passed on through their children. So if we take this as life living on, then maybe we're more respectful and do the right things. But like minds gather, and that way you can grow the missions. We have Tish here. I don't know if anyone knows. Hi, she's
So,
Hey.
Kim, we are starting a new show with Tish, and the show name is Plant a Good Seed.